Back on. Power. Power is a wonderful thing.
Oh, it is a wonderful thing.
Test, test, test. All right. Are you having to do readings or Susan?
You want all the
I don't know.
Catholics?
I haven't been asked yet.
All those who are baptized only seeking confirmation, Catholics
Right.
seeking confirmation.
Yeah, so if you want to help. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, good morning, how are you?
I'm going to leave this right here so that you can, this is.
Yeah.
I'm going live. Hit that again to stop recording. Okay.
Already Catholic.
And then you can.
Already Catholic.
Yes, yes.
You have been baptized, Catholic?
I'm going to turn these individuals off. That should be good.
Okay.
Everybody in here should be. But I have no idea until
So-
I try to find time on YouTube and listen.
Daniel,
Do you want me to have them do it?
David,
Yeah.
Do a test run.
testing 1, 2, 3.
Look how you're looking.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
All right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to take this, and I am
I'm
going
not wearing
to-
this.
You're not going to wear that?
No.
Go good. Well, let's take that off because that'll be in the way. All right, Ed.
Sponsored.
She's
She's sponsored.
sponsored.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
All right, so what I'm going to do is clip you right up here.
Going to clip me.
Yeah, you've been clipped. Now speak.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, looky there.
Can you hear me now?
Do you have anyone that's going to do any readings
Any
today?
readings or anything?
No readings.
Just go ahead and turn this off then.
And then if you notice, hang on, turn it off, hang on to it. If you notice he goes to it, then it's not coming up, on you, switch out.
You're heading to Vegas?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
We're going to go convert Vegas one casino at a time. We're not going to be in the casino, we're going to be in the convention hall. All right, you're good. I don't think I need anything else. I think I'm good to go.
Do you have any videos that are
Just one.
baked in?
Just this one.
Just one of the big ones?
But I don't know that they're going to have time to show it. I
Okay.
might just skip it
Okay.
and send it out.
Okay. If you do want to show it, if you could just give me like a nod or something, because I have to change something in there.
Okay.
And then once it's done, I put it back.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do it because we're going to get a little bit of a late start because of his meeting.
I wouldn't have thought you would look. I'm usually in my own little world.
A lot of us are.
It's been slow. If I overuse it too much, then it gets stiff and it gets sore. But if I don't go crazy with it, then I do okay. So it's still healing. But there's still swelling here in my palm, and basically what I've read is it'll be as much as 6 months before it'll be like completely healed, through and through.
It will get better.
Yeah, yeah. I had surgery on this hand back in 2008, and it took almost 6 months before, it was really working the way it should.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'm good to go by the end of paramedic school.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I might be looking for a new job.
Now, you're taking your courses for, what is it, for, I guess, emergency medical technician? Were you doing that?
I'm already an EMT. I'm doing paramedic now.
Okay. So, all right. So you're able to do that with the shoulder and everything, so, yeah.
It's going to be hard to fight a fire, though.
Yes, yeah.
Hopefully there won't be.
There's always some.
Especially with people doing bonfires, or not bonfires, but burning and, with the dry grass and everything. We had one of those in our neighborhood. Somebody was burning some trash or something, and it got away and burned up somebody's 5 acres.
Wow.
Fall asleep with cigarettes will do it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Somebody trying to do their own plumbing.
Really? Plumbing will do it, huh?
Well, soldering the pipe.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Space heaters, I bet too, right now.
So just a quick announcement. I sent out an email about this, and next Sunday, we have what's called the rite of welcome, rite of acceptance, and signing of census. And it's aimed at the folks who have been kind of in this program for a while, who have reached a point where they're like, hey, I'm pretty convinced I'm going to be, coming into full communion with the church. And it's not a real complex thing, but basically what happens is after the homily, but before the liturgy of the Eucharist, the priest will invite first the catechumens forward, and basically this rite of acceptance is basically, it helps the other parishioners know who you are, for one thing, because a lot of people have no idea who's in this room going through these classes. So part of it is just simply an opportunity for the other parishioners to know who's who and know that you're on this journey, and it's an invitation for the congregation to pray for you. So the priest will call you up and invite you to come up with your sponsor. And I know some of you still need sponsors, and we can deal with that. And so I sent out just kind of a highlight of what the ceremony was like. And what I can do is I can send out the actual script for the ceremony, so you know exactly what's going to happen. No surprises. And you have very little to say. It's not like you have a big speaking part or something like that. And then after that, the candidates, the people who are baptized, will be invited up. And very similar process. It's just making the distinction between who's baptized and who's not baptized. And then we have a symbolic ceremony that's called the signing of the senses, where a person, your sponsor, will sign you over your ears, over your eyes, over your lips, over your chest, over your shoulders, your hands, and your feet. And they say, receive the sign of the cross on your ears that you may hear the voice of the Lord. Receive the sign of the cross on your eyes that you may see the glory of God. Receive the sign of the cross on your lips that you may respond to the word of God, so forth and so on. And that kind of concludes the ceremony. And you are not absolutely required to participate. We encourage you to. I'll send out a script for it. I'll make sure that anybody who's participating in it does have a sponsor, and if you don't have a sponsor, I'll make sure you get a sponsor. And it would be a good idea to come to, this would be at the 9 o'clock Mass, it'd be a good idea to come, maybe like 8:45, so that if you have any last minute questions, I can address those for you. And nothing to be scared about. Bobby, you went through this.
I'm just excited that you are doing so much better, because he did not prepare me for that.
I learned.
And the father got up there, I'm going, oh no.
Yes, Aaron.
Will we know if we're on in any of those three groups?
Yeah. I mean, you're with the catechumens.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think most of you are going to be candidates. Molly, you would be catechumen because you're not baptized, right? And Erin, unfortunately, yes, she was baptized in the kitchen sink by her parents, and we don't really doubt that she was baptized, but we don't have any real documentation, and so she'll be conditionally baptized. And so conditional baptism is, if you have not been baptized, I baptize you. So we're just doing it just to be sure, right? So just so happens that she falls into the catechumen category. Yeah, but the vast majority of the folks are already been baptized. So anyway, and then there's another thing coming up. The Diocese of Tyler sent a letter to Father, and they are having what they refer to as the rite of election on, looks like February, I'm sorry. We'll have the rite of election here at the parish, but on February 28th, they're going to have the diocesan presentation liturgy, which is where you present it to the bishop. And that's on I believe it's a Saturday, and there's two options. There's a morning and there's an afternoon session. And what I've been asked to do is get a kind of a consensus of whether you would rather go to the morning one or to the afternoon one. And I think the morning one's like at 10 o'clock and the afternoon one is like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. So
What's the date of that?
it's the 28th of February. It's a Saturday. That's in Tyler down at the cathedral, and the bishop will be there.
I'm gonna say the afternoon.
Yeah. So by a raise of hands, who would rather go down in the morning? Okay.
Time-ish, like early.
I think, yeah, I think it's 10 o'clock if I remember correctly. Let me see. Yeah, the morning liturgy will be at 10 a.m. and the afternoon will be 1 p.m. Yeah, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Parishes must plan to attend one of these liturgies with their electing candidates. So,
We don't have to, like, all of them go from this church, they have the choice, some can go in the morning, some can go in the afternoon.
no, the parish has to pick one time,
Okay.
and it's kind of the consensus of the group. So obviously, it makes it difficult because we have so many folks that are involved. It seems like we have a couple people that really wanted to go in the morning, if you could. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know it had to be unanimous, but if
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
I'm close.
Okay, so 1 p.m. afternoon, 28th? I'll get you more information about it as we get closer. Okay. I'll let Father know, 28th, 1 o'clock, down at Tyler, and we'll provide directions and other info. No, that's me. It's saying to reconnect my drive.
Do you want to display though? Figure that was a good.
So that's a Saturday?
Because right now it's just showing your desktop.
Hang on a second. Yeah, go ahead and, I mean,
You're gonna do the video first, or?
no, I'm not going to do the video, but I should be able to see that up on the screen right now.
No, you can't.
Can't?
No, it's showing the Wave desktop.
February 28th is
Okay.
a Saturday.
No, it's not even responding here. I think what individual's beliefs or their feelings. And there are some very common slogans that are used for this. If you hear somebody say something like, "What's right is what I believe is right," or if they say, "Right and wrong are a matter of personal opinion," or they say, "To each their own," or if they say, "If I think it's right, then it's right for me," moral truth is subjective, you can't legislate morality, you have your truth, I have my truth. You know, if you hear people saying that kind of thing, chances are they're using subjective relativism for their moral decision making. Now, there's another one called cultural relativism. It's essentially the same thing, but the difference is that rather than the individual making the decision about what's moral, the culture that they're part of is what decides what's moral. It's just the subjective raised to the level of culture. And if you hear somebody say something like, let's see, some of the common ones. Right and wrong are determined by society. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Most people have heard that one. Different strokes for different folks. What's morally right is what culture approves. Different cultures, different moral codes. Morality is defined by cultural tradition. You shouldn't impose your values on others. When in doubt, follow the masses. And I mean, there could be other slogans, but I think you kind of get the idea. I've heard practically all of those used by somebody. Oh, okay. Yeah. The next one's interesting. It's called ethical egoism. And basically, what is right and wrong is determined by your self-interest, or what is best for you. And so slogans for that would be, do what is ever in your best interest. Everyone ought to look out for themselves. The right action is the one that benefits me the most. Morality means rational self-interest. What's right is what's best for me. You need to look out for number one. If you don't, no one else will. Ethical egoism. Look out for number one. It's just me, right? And my self-interest. Next one is what's called act utilitarianism. So it's in this system of morality, morality is determined by the utility, if you will, or the consequence of your action. And what they're basically referring to is that it's decisions that produce the greatest pleasure or the greatest happiness. And so they'll say things like the greatest good for the greatest number, the end justifies the means, choose the action that maximizes happiness, do whatever produces the best consequences, maximize overall pleasure, or minimize suffering. Those would be act utilitarianism. Next one is called social contract or social contract theory. Sometimes it's referred to that. And this system of morality is basically right and wrong is determined by what people in society would agree to in terms of creating sort of a social contract among the people in that society. So there's sort of an implied, kind of voting, if you will, or agreement, and you would relinquish some of your own personal freedom, kind of for the greater good of the others in the society that you're living in. And so common slogans for that would be, morality is based on rules we agree to live by. Follow the rules that rational people would accept. Right and wrong come from social agreements. Morality is a contract for mutual benefit. Rules exist to make society work. When in doubt, follow your elected officials. Things like that. That's the kind of things you would hear if somebody kind of ascribed to that system of morality. And then the final one is called situation ethics. And situation ethics is decisions are evaluated by how well they express love. What is loving can change from situation to situation. If the result is genuinely more loving, breaking a rule may be morally acceptable. No action is inherently right or wrong. Actions are judged by their loving consequences, not by the act itself. And so slogans for that would be, do the most loving thing, love is the only absolute, it depends on the situation, rules can be broken for love, context determines what is right. All kinds of slogans for that. So if you were to summarize, kind of a short sentence of each one of them is, right is whatever I think is right is whatever my culture approves, right is whatever benefits me, right is whatever produces happiness and pleasure, right is whatever people would agree to, right is whatever seems right here and now. And the primary focus of those systems would be, for subjective relativism, it would be the individual. For cultural relativism, it would be societies. For ethical egoism, it's self-interest. Act utilitarianism, it's consequences. Social contract, it's agreements. And then situation ethics is circumstances. So let's pause for just a second and ask, just with what you have seen and heard and know right now, what would you say is different about the Christian moral life compared to what we just saw? Anybody, shout it out.
We have a solid set of rules that we have in place.
Yeah, we have an objective set of morality. Okay, glad. Yeah.
We're taken out of it, like, we take our ego and ourselves out.
Yeah, we eliminate our, it's not about us, exactly. Yeah, so if you look at all of those, do they have objective rules? No. The only one that you could maybe say would be social contract, because the rules are what you agreed to, right? That might be the closest thing you have to objective rules, but other than that, all of those don't have any objective rules, right? It's all kind of, I make it up as I go, whatever I feel or whatever I think. So non-theistic worldviews, there's no objective moral standards because there's no ultimate foundation for a moral obligation. So morality in all of these is basically based on subjective human opinion. Now, this is an interesting quote I got from somebody. It's called "History Repeats Itself." No culture in history has ever embraced moral relativism and survived. Our own culture, therefore, will either, 1, be the first to disprove history's clearest lesson, or 2, persist in its relativism and die, or 3, repent of its relativism and live. There's no other option. No other option. So if not God, then who has the authority to say one must act this way, and if you don't, then you're a morally bad person, right? Because it's just opinion. It's just subjective. Now, does anybody raise your hand if you've ever heard of somebody named Thomas Merton? Okay, so Thomas Merton was, he was a pretty wayward fella. He was a womanizer, drugs, alcohol, good times, all that kind of stuff. And he had a huge change of heart. But and in his memoirs, he kind of wrote what his mentality was when he was living that lifestyle. He said, "In the name of whom or what do you ask me to behave? Why should I go to the inconvenience of denying myself the satisfactions I desire in the name of some standard that exists only in your imagination?" Because at that time, he didn't believe in God or anything, right? He didn't believe in any kind of objective moral standard. So it's like, hey, it's whatever I want, whatever I find satisfying. Well, he had a 180-degree turn. Somebody kind of put it this way. I thought this was interesting. A moral atheist is like someone sitting down to dinner who doesn't believe in farmers, ranchers, fishermen, or cooks. They believe that food simply appears without any explanation or sufficient cause. This is illogical. Either the meal is an illusion or someone must have provided it. Similarly, if morals truly exist, then they must be a cause adequate to explain their existence. God is the most reasonable explanation for this. So, all of these systems that we were just talking about, people make decisions and they're presented as a path toward happiness. And so the question is, what do they conceive happiness as being? What is happiness? What do they define it? So happiness is generally conceived of as pleasure. This pleasure is usually defined as health of mind and body, which would be Epicureanism. Though some would see it as simply bodily pleasure, and that would be hedonism. And so can you think of any popular slogans used to express that concept of happiness? Anybody? Any slogan you've heard that kind of expresses that idea? If it feels good, do it, right? Or nothing is wrong if it feels good. Chase pleasure. Maximize your happiness. Life's short, enjoy it. If it makes you happy, it can't be wrong. Do what makes you feel good, right? That's the kind of stuff you hear. So now we get to the Christian moral life. Well, what's that all about? So what makes the Christian moral life different, right? Well, we already said there's an objective moral code. And that moral code is in keeping with who and what we are as humans. And so for Christians, we would say that the way of Christ is what really leads to happiness. And it's very interesting to me, this was not planned out in advance because we made this schedule of these classes and everything back in like June. Had no idea that the class would be on the Beatitudes. Or the gospel would be on Beatitudes this morning. I remember sitting there thinking, oh man, this dovetails. If you've been paying attention to the gospel and the homily, it dovetails with what we're talking about today. It's kind of interesting. I don't consider that coincidence, actually. So Christ, following the pattern of the Old Testament, teaches us that true happiness is found only in the loving fulfillment of God's will. And in the Psalms, it says, they are happy whose life is blameless, who follow God's law. They are happy who do his will, seeking him with all their hearts, who never do anything evil but walk in his ways. That is a very Christian attitude. So the Christian moral life would say true happiness transcends pleasure. I mean, if you want to be happy for 5 minutes, go on a roller coaster ride. If you want to be happy for, 2 hours, watch a good movie, right? If you want an enduring happiness, well, it's going to be something different. What was Jesus' path to happiness? His own personal path.
Jesus' path to what?
Happiness. How did Jesus achieve happiness?
Ministry.
Cross. The cross. Did I show you guys the video by Bishop Barron that talked about the cross and the Beatitudes? Anybody remember that? I guess we are going to have a video.
You want to put it on there?
Yep, I think so. Just to flip a switch or something. Say when.
We sense within ourselves this infinite longing for God, but we attempt to fill it up with something less than God. Thomas Aquinas named these four classical substitutes as wealth, pleasure, power, and honor. We know that we need God, but we try to fill the void with something less than God, some combination of those four things. In point of fact, it's only the emptying out of the ego in love that paradoxically fills us up. Now, the classical spiritual tradition referred to this errant desire as concupiscence, but I think we could translate the idea very effectively with our more modern term of addiction. And here's why. We're hungry for God, but we try to fill the hunger with something less than God, and so necessarily we are frustrated. In our frustration, we convince ourselves we need more of that finite good. And so we strive and strive and strive, and we get it, and find ourselves necessarily frustrated. At this point, a kind of spiritual panic sets in, and we find ourselves obsessively turning around some finite good that can never, in principle, make us happy.
Yay! We are very happy to see you. Thank you for those songs. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay.
The first of the negative formulations is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." This is neither a romanticizing of economic poverty nor a demonization of wealth, but rather a formula for detachment. Might I suggest a somewhat variant rendition? How blessed are you if you are not attached to material things, if you have not placed the goods that wealth can buy at the center of your concern. When the kingdom of God is your ultimate concern, not only will you not become addicted to material things, you will in fact be able to use them with great effectiveness for God's purposes. Under the same rubric of detachment, we should consider the beatitude, "How blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." Now, I know this can sound like the worst kind of masochism, but we have to dig deeper. I think a very legitimate translation would be, how lucky you are, how happy and blessed you are, if you're not addicted to good feelings. Good feelings, pleasant sensations, physical, emotional, psychological, are wonderful, but they're not God. And if we turn them into God, they become in short order the focus of an addiction, which can be seen clearly enough in the prevalence of drug abuse and pornography and conspicuous consumption in our society. Again, this has nothing to do with Puritanism. It has to do with detachment, and therefore with spiritual freedom. Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." Once more, Jesus is not so much passing judgment on institutions of power as he is showing a path of detachment. How lucky you are if you are not attached to the finite good of worldly power. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, experienced at first hand the horrors of the First World War and witnessed those of the Second. It's no accident that in his great work he proposed as the most tempting talisman precisely a ring of power. But when you're detached from worldly power, then you can follow the will of God, even if it means walking a path of extreme powerlessness. Meek, unaddicted to worldly power, you can become a conduit of true divine power to the world. And the last of the negative beatitudes is, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." We must read this once again in light of Thomas Aquinas' analysis. If the call to poverty holds off the addiction to material things, and the summons to mourn counters the addiction to good feelings, and the valorization of meekness blocks the addiction to power, this last beatitude gets in the way of the addicting attachment to honor. Standing in front of Matthias Grunewald's great painting, the Eisenheim altarpiece. It's one of the most spiritually powerful and brutally realistic depictions of the crucifixion in Western art. Look at Jesus' mouth, just agape in speechless anguish. Look at the terrible wounds in his hands and his feet, the blisters and wounds all over his body. There's nothing the least bit sentimental about this portrayal. I'm here because of something Thomas Aquinas said. Thomas said, if you want the perfect exemplification of the Beatitudes, look to Christ crucified. He specified, if you want to be happy, despise what Jesus despised on the cross, and love what Jesus loved on the cross. What did he despise? Those four things in which we typically seek our happiness. Wealth, he has none of it. He's stripped naked. Pleasure, he's at the limit of psychological and physical suffering. Power, he has none. He's nailed to the cross. He can't even move. Honor, they mock him as he's publicly displayed, crucified at the end of his life. Jesus is detached from the four things in which we typically seek our joy. And what did he love on the cross? He loved doing the will of his Father. He was on the cross the single-hearted one. He was on the cross the one who hungers for righteousness. And therefore on the cross he was the ultimate peacemaker. He was on the cross the ultimate bearer of the divine mercy. Though it's very strange to say, though it's a very high paradox, if Aquinas is right, that is a picture of a happy man. And there's more. Notice please how John the Baptist to the right indicates Jesus, but in this odd, contorted way. It's as though all of our expectations have to be turned around, and then we can see that that indeed is a picture of freedom. That indeed is a picture of joy.
True happiness is grounded in the experience of joy, not pleasure. And what's really interesting, if you look at it, if you look at joy and pleasure, joy belongs directly to the moral and spiritual level, whereas pleasure belongs to the domain of our senses. Joy is something that's interior, whereas pleasure tends to be more exterior stimulus. Joy is born of trials, pains endured or sufferings accepted with courage and love, where pleasure is absolutely opposed to any kind of form of pain. Joy is lasting, whereas pleasure's usually very brief, fleeting. And joy can be communicated. It can be shared, whereas typically pleasure tends to be very selfish or individual. A whole lot of difference between joy and pleasure. So the church teaches that true happiness is found through a committed adherence to moral principles. And it says, but since good is the object of the will, the perfect good of man is that which entirely satisfies his will. Consequently, to desire happiness is nothing else than to desire that one's will be satisfied, and this one everyone desires. So morality is often thought of as a set of do's and don'ts, or punishments, or laws, or commands. But in the Christian faith, it's more than a set of truths to be believed. It's actually imitating Jesus, the way of Christ. And so if you think about Jesus, it's really about living in right relationships. And when we talk about living in right relationships, we're talking about three primary relationships. We're talking about our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with other people, and our relationship with God. And so then the question is, well, what human quality do we have that affects all these relationships? And the answer to that is our free will. But then people are like, okay, our free will, what does freedom mean? And a lot of different definitions for freedom. And if you look at what the modern world would say is freedom, they'll say things like, freedom is the right to do things you want to do. Again, right, this very subjective way of thinking of things. Doing what you like is freedom. Liking what you do is happiness. And Jesus turns all of that upside down. So the Catholic Church would say, freedom is the power rooted in reason and will to act or not to act, to do this or that, and so to perform deliberate actions on one's own responsibility. By free will, one shapes one's own life. Human freedom is a force for growth and maturity in truth and goodness. It attains its perfection when directed toward God, not directed toward ourselves. So God gives free will to choose. Now, this is a quote from Peter Kreeft. I thought it was pretty good. Every human has free will to choose between good and evil and the responsibility to do so. It means that by virtue of this freedom, men and women can exercise true control over their thoughts, deeds, and the formation of their character. This freedom is essentially interior, so it can never be truly forced or coerced. Actions may be coerced, but assent can never be coerced. So, for example, if you were a bank teller, right, and somebody held a gun on you and said, hand over the money, right? Yeah, they could force you to hand over the money, but in your mind, you're like, I don't really want to give you the money. What you're doing is wrong, but I'm being forced to at gunpoint. But you don't have my assent. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of people outside the Catholic Church think that religion is there to control you. So they'll say, religion is used to control the masses, and it has been used that way for its whole existence. Religion and faith is a way of controlling what people think and making them conform. So they'll say something like that. They'll say things like, fear is used to control you. And they'll say, religion? Nah, that's man-made institutions to control us. They'll say religion that promotes other places, heaven and so on, in place of the physical world is a delusion, a mere control device. Everybody know who Joseph Stalin is? Mm-hmm. I'm Joseph Stalin. I was a hip, intellectual, atheist socialist. Like many who came later, I believed in freedom and wealth without personal responsibility. Once I got government power, I genocided 11 million of my own countrymen for dissent. Karl Marx showed me the way. Thank you, Karl. Well, what's really interesting is that perception is completely wrong, because the Christian moral life is not about the church controlling you. It's about you controlling yourself. Not about the church controlling you. Any one of you could walk out of this room anytime and say, Ed, I've had enough of your baloney. I don't want to hear any more of it. I'm out of here. That door's not locked. There's no chain on your leg or anything like that. And there never will be. This is how the conversation usually goes, right? This is the mentality. Some person will say, I want to do X, right? And the church says, You are free to do it. The person says, but you teach X is wrong. Church says, yes, we teach that particular thing is wrong. And the person says, because you want to control me. And church says, no, you are free to do what you want. But you teach X is wrong. Yes, because I desire your ultimate good. And I'm going to tell you, something bad is good. But I want to do X. You're free to do it. But I want you to say X is good. I cannot say that. That's how the conversation goes. So you can't come here and expect us to tell you that something bad is good. If you want to go do something bad, we can't stop you. We hope you wouldn't, but we can't stop you. The church can't stop you. Remember, freedom is the power rooted in reason and will to act or not to act, to do this or that, and so to perform deliberate actions on one's own responsibility. By free will, one shapes one's own life. Human freedom is the force for growth and maturity in truth and goodness. It attains its perfection when directed toward God. In a nutshell, freedom consists in not doing what we like, but in having the right to do what we ought to do. Now, what is a word that Christians will use to describe the times they have misused their freedom? Anybody? What's a word that we use to describe when we've misused our freedom?
Sin.
Sin. Sin. Sin is an offense against reason, it's an offense against truth, and it's an offense against right conscience. It's a failure in genuine love for God and neighbor caused by an improper attachment to certain goods. It wounds the nature of man and injures human solidarity. It has been defined as an utterance, a deed, or a desire contrary to the eternal law. So then the next question is, well, what's the eternal law? So I know this is kind of a busy diagram, but bear with me. So the eternal law is God directing all things, everything, right? He created everything. So on the left-hand side, you see, the physical laws of matter, right? Gravity and magnetism and all the physical laws that, physicists study and are acquainted with. And then on the other side, you have moral laws. They're the laws of human activity, our actions. And there's two parts to that, right? I mean, we have certain human laws that we create, right? Don't jaywalk, don't go more than 70 miles an hour on the interstate, and whatever, right? We've got speed laws and other kinds of things that we create for, that the state creates, and with good reason. And then the church has its own set of laws of marriage and, that sort of thing. But then you have the divine laws that come from God, and those consist of what's called the natural law and revealed laws. And this dovetails with one of the very first classes we ever had, which was on divine revelation. We talked about how we have general revelation, right? And we have divine revelation. General revelation is what you can learn from the created world. And then you have divine revelation, which is where God is communicating to us directly. And in terms of revealed laws, we have the Old Testament and the New Testament. So that's kind of the big picture. So quick summary, right? Physical laws are the laws of matter. Moral laws are the laws of human behavior. Divine laws are both natural and revealed, right? And natural law would be the natural one. It's what we can perceive by what is around us. And then we have laws that are shown to us by God, and they come from the Old and New Testaments. And then we have human laws, both church and civil, laws made by the church and the state. So not too hard to figure out. And our focus is on the natural law and revealed laws today. Not kind of concerned with a lot of other things. But, so what is natural law? Well, natural law refers to those moral precepts of the eternal law that a rational creature, right, can figure out without any special revelation. For example, the fact that murder, theft, and lying are wrong can be discerned by human reason without special revelation. So prohibitions against them constitute part of the natural law. Now, Paul, when he wrote to the Romans, he talks about this. He says, when Gentiles who have not the law do by nature what the law requires, they are a law to themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show that what the law requires is written in their hearts. So what he's talking about is, through our human reason, we can figure certain things out, whether they're right or wrong. And the natural law basically is do good and avoid evil. So the natural law affirms that there's an objective moral truth, human dignity, reason, and there's some universal norms. And but it requires proper formation. And it can be misapplied if you are not applying the virtues, which a whole other class will be on virtues. And so natural law is rooted in human nature and reason, but it's perfected by the revealed law. So, does everybody know who Christopher Hitchens is? The militant atheist? Okay. Here's a statement he made. If I see a group of men pushing a pregnant woman down and kicking her in the stomach, I don't need a Bible or some God to tell me that it's wrong. Clearly it is wrong, and I can know that. Yes, Christopher. That's the natural law. You don't need to have divine revelation to know that that's wrong. Human reason can get you there. We agree with you, Christopher. We just don't agree with you that, that God doesn't exist. So, I'll skip that one. I know what I was going to say. So the Catholic Church teaches that unbelievers, people who are not Christian in any way, shape, or just not theists, right, can live a life of relative virtue without believing in God. Because through human reason, right, they can know that behaviors that respect the goods and human nature and living accordingly. So everyone is bound by the natural law. If somebody doesn't know better, if they were never churched, right, they grew up and never had any inclination whatsoever, their parents weren't religious, they grew up in an atheistic environment, right, they at least know the natural law, or can know the natural law. They may not know anything about divine, revealed law, but they at least can know the natural law. Now, it's very interesting. The anthropologists at the University of Oxford discovered what they believed to be 7 universal moral values, or rules, which were found when they surveyed 60 different cultures from around the world. Anybody want to take a guess, or venture a guess, of what those 7 universal moral rules are? I'll end the suspense.
Similar to the Ten Commandments.
Help your family, help your group, return favors, be brave, defer to superiors, divide resources fairly, respect others' property. That's another example of natural law, right? There's no divine law, revealed law here. This is just, plain old folk, figuring out what kind of works, right? Human reason. Now, here's the important thing, though. Just because something can be figured out through our human reason doesn't mean that it will be figured out. So it's extremely useful to have revealed law, so there's no ambiguity. And I'll give you an example. Can you think of a moral teaching that's unique to Christianity that you would never figure out through natural law? Anybody want to take a stab at that one? A moral law. love your enemies. Who would think to come up with that? Because most people, it's like, I'm going to hate my enemy, right? No, love your enemy. So the revealed law, right, is called the Torah, right, 10 Commandments, and the law of Christ. And so God has revealed his divine law to mankind on two major occasions, one through the Old Testament and through the New Testament. And Jesus fulfills everything from the Old Testament. So both of them contain moral, judicial, and ceremonial laws. Now, one thing that does come up in these discussions is that some people accuse the Catholic Church of manipulating the commandments. The Catholics, you removed the second commandment. And we haven't done that, but we're accused of that. So if you look here, there's just a graph showing the Jewish understanding, how they would enumerate the 10 Commandments, how Catholics enumerate the 10, and how the typical Protestants would enumerate the 10. You have to realize, first of all, there's two lists of the commandments in the Old Testament. There's one in Exodus, and there's another list in Deuteronomy. They are not numbered. There's no numbers saying this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3. The numbering is based on basically convention and tradition, not because they're numbered that way in either of those Old Testament books. So it just so happens that in the Catholic Church we group graven images under Commandment 1 because you're not supposed to have any other gods but God alone. And so we consider that part of the first commandment. And then we split the last one because there's a big difference between coveting somebody's neighbor's wife and coveting their horse or their house or whatever. Whereas in the Protestant listing, it'll just say don't covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. They group the two together. So we still have the same. Now, if you look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it'll show the Exodus list, the Deuteronomy list, and then it'll have what's called a catechetical list, one that's used for the purpose of instruction. There'll be 3 columns. So they're all there. We didn't eliminate them. You're not supposed to be worshiping idols or something like that. But that one was removed, or that one is emphasized, I should say, by some non-Catholics because they're like, see, you got statues in your churches and you're worshiping those statues. And we don't worship statues. They're holy reminders. They are not gods. Now, a little bit of levity here, folks. This was a child's rendition of the 10 Commandments. Don't use up all your money. Be kind, listen to your parents, give charity is, I think, what it's supposed to be. 5 is respect God, don't abuse video games, don't kill anybody, play outside more, do the nay-nay. That's a hip-hop dance move. And then punch Hitler in the face. You got some of it right. The hillbilly 10 Commandments. Ain't but one God, honor your ma and pa, no telling tales or gossiping, get your hide to Sunday meeting, ain't nothing come before the Lord, no fooling with another fellow's gal, no killing except for critters, quit your foul mouthing, no swiping your kinfolk's stuff, don't be hankering for it neither. And a couple. Give those 8 commandments back. I just thought of 2 more. Oh, I like this font. What's it called? Okay. So for Christians, the law of Christ is the second major revelation of divine law. It contains laws set forth by Christ and the apostles in the deposit of faith. It provides for the special outpouring of grace by the Holy Spirit who empowers individuals to keep the new law. You would not be able to keep the commandments if it weren't for God's grace. Ain't going to happen. So this all leads to the question, how do you know if you're doing something that's morally good? And so the Catholic Church has always taught that in order to know that you are performing a good moral act, there are three components. You have to, you have what's called the object, the moral object, which would be the thing that you are doing, right? The intention, why you are doing, so what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then the circumstances, who, where, what, when, how, all that kind of stuff. So those are the three components. I'll make another comment here.
Doesn't your conscience, I mean, your natural conscience that everybody's kind of born with, aren't they?
Yeah, but you can dull your conscience.
I'm sorry?
You can dull your conscience.
Okay.
You can ignore your conscience.
Okay.
Yeah. So the object could be, there's three possibilities. It could be intrinsically good, it could be intrinsically neutral, or it could be intrinsically evil. So what's the difference, okay? So here's some examples of intrinsically good things you could do. Donate to charity, offer comfort to someone grieving, protecting the vulnerable, telling the truth, right? Those would all be intrinsically good things. Intrinsically neutral, watching television, eating a meal, playing Monopoly, right? Riding a bike. Those are intrinsically neutral. Intrinsically evil, intentionally killing an innocent person, torturing someone, committing sexual assault, stealing, lying with malicious intent, right? Those would all be intrinsically evil. So the object, what you are doing, carries the greatest weight in the determination of a moral act. The act itself has the greatest weight. So, well, you say, well, why is that? Why would it have the greatest weight? Well, there's three major reasons. One of them is that we said in an earlier session, you express yourself through your body. I think I used the illustration. If I slap somebody in the face, I can't say, my hand did that, right? I didn't do that, my hand did it. Because my hand is an integral part of who I am, right? And if I use it to slap somebody in the face, I am expressing my will through my body. So what we do, how we act, makes or forms us into the person we're growing to be. So if I lie, I become a liar, right? If I'm a thief, if I steal stuff, I become a thief. I become what I do, right? And so, and on top of all that, our actions affect the world around us. So we can either bring good or harm to other people through our acts. So the intention is the subjective component of what we do and how we act. So the first element of morality is the object, the specific thing we do. The second part is the intention. So it's the intended goal, right, of the action. And then the third and the final element is the circumstances or the conditions or the facts affecting a moral decision that increase or decrease good or evil. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose I donate money and my intention is to help people. And I do it, I donate money to Goodwill or Salvation Army or something. Good thing I'm doing, good intention, and the circumstances are good, because Salvation Army helps a lot of people, homeless shelters and so forth. Good. What if my intention is to look good? Hey, look at me, I donated money. Well, guess what? it kind of sours the act a little bit, right? The intention has an effect on the overall. That's just an example. You can't just have just a good intention, right, alone. You actually have to have a good act, you have to have good intention, and you have to have good circumstances. There's an old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And this saying is believed to be a modern adaptation of a saying attributed to St. Bernard of Clairvaux, who wrote around 1150, and he said, hell is full of good wishes and desires. And then the third component is the concrete situation, circumstances in which we perform the act. Who are we doing it with? Where are we doing it? Why are we doing it? Not why, but where, when, how, with whom, all those kind of things. So the circumstances cannot change the moral quality of an act, though. It can't make a bad act good. It's more, actually, it makes a good act bad often. So, in order to have a good moral act, all three of these have to be good. Or otherwise there's some deficiency. Now,
So is capital punishment, I'm just making off the subject, but capital punishment for killing the person because they killed somebody else, and we are determining that
let's
they're gonna do something worse.
yeah, let's hold that
Okay.
just a little bit because we're almost there,
Okay.
and I think it'll be clear. Okay, so all three have to be good. Now, because there's three possibilities, right? Three variables. If you take all three, and you have two possibilities, right? You could have a good or bad act. You could have a good or bad intention, good or bad circumstances. If you take 3 to the power of 2, that gives you 8 different combinations. So if the object, intention, and the circumstances are all good, you haven't done anything wrong. But look, all the different ways you can get yourself in trouble. Because all three have to be good. Now, I'm not saying you have to follow this interpretation, but I'm going to give you from Matthew's Gospel. I think it's kind of interesting. Look at the picture and listen to this Gospel passage. Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road broad that leads to destruction, and those who enter through it are many. How narrow the gate and constricted the road that leads to life, and those who find it are few. It gives you a whole different appreciation for that particular gospel passage, doesn't it? Because that first line up there, good, 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 that's pretty narrow, and the rest of it's pretty darn wide. Now, you are not obligated to, necessarily apply that, but it sure makes sense to me. Now, notice that we have the first 4 lines here, good, 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 but something was defective in the intention or the circumstances. And so you did something. Now, depending on what the subject is, how grave of matter it is, it could be a mortal sin or a venial sin, but you're kind of off the mark. Now, how many of you are old enough to remember a movie series called Death Wish with Charles Bronson? Anybody remember that? Okay. Well, the premise of that whole series was that Charles Bronson was like he was like a real estate guy or something like that, and his wife was murdered during a burglary. And he decided to be a vigilante and go after the people that robbed his house and killed his wife. And so the whole series was about him, eradicating, these criminals. And so that's an example of the ends justify the means, right? His intention, right? He's doing a good thing by wanting criminals to be brought to justice, but there was a defect in his approach. He became a murderer himself, essentially, because he took the law into his own hands. That'd be an extreme example. Now, you asked the question about capital punishment. So, it depends on what you're doing, right? If an intruder came into your house and threatened your family and you shot them and killed them, you would not have sinned, right? Because, yes, you shot an intruder and your intention was to protect your family, and the circumstances was, you were in your home and you were being threatened by an intruder, right? So that is not the killing of an innocent person, right? That is an act of self-defense, and that's permissible. In the past, capital punishment has always been understood as a societal defense, self-defense for society, because the civil authorities had no practical way of really confining murderers and so forth and protecting society. And so capital punishment was allowed, right? Not like it's this wonderful thing, allowed for protection of society. But in modern society, we have maximum security prisons. And if somebody's done something bad and they're a threat to society, you put them in a maximum security prison, there's not much chance they're going to get out and be a threat to society. So the church has said it was allowed in the past because we had no mechanism to protect society. Now we do, and the justification for using capital punishment has basically nearly vaporized. There may be some edge cases where there are specific localities where, they don't have a real true way of confining somebody who's a threat to society. But by and large, in the modern world, bad people can be kept away from society. So the circumstances have changed, right? And so they affect the moral outcome of capital punishment. And the more recent popes have said, we don't really have justification for going to that extreme to protect society that we used to have.
So does capital punishment fall under the social contract realism or whatever we're talking about in the beginning?
No, not necessarily. I mean, people could have a social contract and say, hey, we're gonna kill, murderers, right? We're gonna use capital punishment on them. But if you're looking at it from the Christian moral point of view, the object has to be, it would have to be, you're trying to protect society from a murder, whatever. Your intention has to be the protection, right? So the act is killing the perpetrator. The intention has to be protecting society, and you have no other alternative. The circumstances have to be such you have no other alternative, right? That would be the only way it would be justified. Now, let's suppose somebody wanted capital punishment for revenge. I want them to die because they killed my brother, whatever, right? Now the intention is all about revenge. It has nothing to do with protecting society. It's obviously wrong, right? So you tweak these dials, right, and you see what happens in your moral decision making. If you try to keep them all aligned and all good, that's not easy to do because we have human passions, we sometimes operate out of ignorance, all kinds of things happen to us and we make mistakes. So following the way of Christ is no cakewalk. It's not easy. So you can see that good acts can actually be made bad by bad intentions or bad circumstances. Look at the line down here where it says bad, good, good. I've got good intention, I got good circumstances, but I'm doing something bad. Bad act. Good intentions, good circumstances do not make a bad act a good act. And then heaven help you if you're doing something bad and your intention is bad and the circumstances are bad. That's about as low as you can go in the world of morality. And the same would be true for these, right? You have a good intention, but a bad circumstance and bad object. Bad intention, bad object, good circumstance. All three have to be good to be doing something good.
Does that get into when people say, well, it's a black and white, it's a black and white situation, it's good, or it's
well, for us,
bad, good.
Yeah, so the object, right, the act you're doing typically is black or white. It's the intention and the circumstances that kind of add a little bit of grayness to things, right? Now, let's go back to intrinsically evil acts for a second. Acts in and of themselves, independent of circumstances, intentions that are always gravely wrong, right? So you can never do something bad or evil in order to bring about a good. That would be the death wish thing, right? End justifies the means, right? Can't do that. And this is what's called the Pauline principle. And if you go to Romans chapter 3, verse 8, it talks about how the Christians were accused of this whole idea of the ends justify the means. And Paul rejects it. Like, we're accused of doing this, and that's not what we're about. So an intrinsically evil act refers to any actions that are always evil regardless of the intentions or the circumstances. One of the reasons these acts are considered to be always wrong is in part because the purpose of these actions is never one that draws us closer to God. Right? We're drawing ourselves away. Reason attests that there are objects of the human act which are by their nature incapable of being ordered to God because they radically contradict the good of the person made in his image. And the church has always referred to these as intrinsically evil. Now, I'm going to give you a list, but this is not an exhaustive list. Intrinsically evil includes, but is not limited to, any acts hostile to life itself, whatever violates the integrity of the human person, whatever is offensive to human dignity, ranging from homicide, genocide, and abortion, deportation, slavery, subhuman living conditions, you name it. There's all kinds of things. Now, some people think that they can choose the lesser of two evils. And the Catholic Church says, no, we may not choose any evil. None, period, zippo. There is no allowance whatsoever in the Catholic system of morality for directly choosing an evil. And actually what's interesting is somebody made a quotation here, says, one of the most successful and seductive strategies of evil is to convince us our only choice is evil, that we must choose between the lesser of two evils. And people make jokes about this. They joke about this whole thing. One person said, between two evils, I always pick the one I never tried before. They think it's funny. And the Catholic Church says, no, the lesser of two evils is still evil. Instead of choosing the lesser of two evils, why not make a choice that isn't evil? Right? Or in other words, of two evils, choose neither. Right? And then we're going to conclude with the principle of the double effect. And we need to spend a little bit of time on this because this is important. Okay, so the principle of double effect. What if an action has two outcomes, one good and one bad? What do you do? Well, the church says that you can apply the principle of the double effect. Can you perform a good action even if you foresee that a bad effect will arise? So the principle of the double effect in the church's moral tradition teaches that one may perform a good action even if it is foreseen that a bad effect will arise, but, and I emphasize this, only if four conditions are met. So the first condition is the act itself has to be good. What you're doing has to be good. The only thing that one can intend is the good act, not the foreseen but unintended bad effect. The good effect cannot arise from the bad effect. Otherwise, one would be doing evil to achieve good. And the unintended but foreseen bad effect cannot be disproportionate to the good being performed. That's a mouthful, but let me give you an illustration. Let's suppose you're in a second story apartment, and the apartment is on fire, and you have no way of getting out of the apartment except through a window and jumping off of the second floor. Is it permissible to jump out of that window? Raise your hand if you say yes. Raise your hand if you say no. Raise your hand if you don't know. Most of you said yes, and yes. Why? Okay, let's take it one step at a time. The only thing that can be intended is the good act. What are you trying to do? Save your life. Now, what could happen if you jump out of a second-story window? You could die. People have fallen far shorter distance and have died, right? If you jump out of a second-story window, the probability is increased, right? What about a third-story window, right? You're not intending to die or to get hurt, right? The good effect cannot arise from the bad effect. Otherwise, one would be doing evil to achieve good. So you're trying to survive the fire, trying to escape the flames, and you're jumping out and hoping that you just sprain an ankle, or you come out unscathed.
Look at the 9/11.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll get into that one. Yeah, the unintended but foreseen bad effect cannot be disproportionate to the good being performed. Well, if you break a leg, right? Break a limb by jumping out of that window, it's saving your life is definitely proportionally a greater thing than injuring yourself in the process, right? Now, he just brought up 9/11, and you had people that were jumping off of the Twin Towers. Were those people committing suicide? Did they sin? No. Why?
I don't think they did.
No, right? They knew they were going to die, right? No doubt about it, right? So that decision had already been made. All they were deciding is how. Am I going to burn up in flames, or am I going to die instantly when I impact the pavement? Right?
Or have a heart attack.
So they were not in a position really to save their life at all, right? So they didn't do anything wrong. Right?
I do think it's fair to have a philosophical difference of opinion on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a tough situation.
It is a tough situation.
I got it. I'm not there, wasn't there.
Right.
But you're still jumping without,
Right.
with knowing that you're going to die.
And see, the thing we haven't talked about here yet is we're going to have a class on sin and temptation and so forth, which will help drive clarity to that, because one of the factors that also affects sinfulness of an action is why are you doing it, right? And fear is a major contributor to reducing your culpability. If I was a bank teller and somebody pointed a revolver at my face and said, "Give me the money," I'd give them the money. I don't want to be staring down the barrel of a gun, right? I would give them the money out of fear that they'd shoot me if I didn't, right? So it's another component that we haven't even talked about yet. We're just talking about really broad principles here. When we get into sin and temptation, we're going to dissect that in some great detail, and we're going to talk about what you just brought up. So yes. Glad you brought that up. Here's another example, very practical one. In a just war, which would be a war of self-defense, right? You have an unjust aggressor, and you're fighting back to protect yourself. It is not uncommon for military leaders to consider, if I'm going to target a military target, I have to consider what they call collateral damage. I don't want to kill civilians, right? I want to take out this munitions, factory or whatever it might be, this airport or, this, I want to take out these bomber jets, whatever it might be. They have to consider, is the act of self-defense in this particular way proportionate to the unintended possibility of loss of life of innocent people who have nothing to do with the conflict. And if it looks like the innocent people would be killed by doing this military operation, they typically refrain from doing it, at least if they've got some, got their head around it. So that'd be another example where, you might bomb an enemy's target if you felt like the possibility of loss of innocent life would be either completely absent or extremely negligible. And it would have to do with how important that military target was, how important it was to the apparatus, if you will, the military apparatus of the enemy. So these kinds of real-world decisions make it challenging. And that's why the church says, hey, you got to factor in all four of these conditions, because you can easily get yourself into doing something, trying to do quote-unquote good through a bad act. So the double effect has to be used with extreme care and discernment. So, the question is the act itself not evil? Is my intention to do good and not evil? Proportionally, is the good I do greater than the evil that might occur? And then, you can do it. But you got to be very, very, very careful with this one. Otherwise, you could be doing something good for a bad reason.
Also, like our military men, they're in a war, they're having to defend whatever.
Yep.
And if they happen to kill somebody that's supposed to end up doing that, the effect that they have on themselves
Sure.
after that happens, that stays with them for a long time, because a lot of them have been raised the right way, thou shalt not kill, but they have to protect themselves, but that affects them long term.
Right. So does this everybody make sense? Right. So we're going to summarize, right? So we have different systems of morality, right? And each contains elements of truth. I don't know if you've noticed that as we were going through here. Remember, situation ethics, the circumstances, right? Well, yeah, circumstances matter, right? Love matters. So each of those other systems of morality have little grains of truth in them. I've got a handout that I'm going to send out both ways. And you can take this home and study it a little bit. I'm going to keep one for me. So there are certain strengths And like in subjective relativism, there is a respect for the individual conscience and responsibility. So that's a good thing. But the subjective nature of the decision making is what's deficient, right? There's no objective moral truth. And then what happens in those cases is that your own conscience is what is creating the morality, not some objective truth that is revealed by God. So the Catholic Church would say that your conscience must discover moral truth that's rooted in human nature. Cultural relativism encourages humility toward cultures and traditions, all good stuff, but because cultural relativism rejects moral norms, right? You could get involved in some very unjust practices as a society, as a culture. And moral laws are universal, and they're not culture bound. Egoism, right? There is a sense that we have to have legitimate self-care, right? But when morality is based on that and not on the common good of others, then it becomes distorted. So true human flourishing includes self-giving love, not me, 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 me. Act utilitarianism considers consequences and common good stuff, but again, it ignores, other things. And so, ends never justify the means. Societal, social contract, having values and law and order and authority and cooperation, good stuff. But if morality, if it makes morality dependent on agreement, then what if a bunch of us agree that, we want a particular law and it disadvantages you? So human laws must conform to natural law to be just. Situation ethics, do the most loving thing. Centers moral decision making on love and compassion, that's good. But what if somebody thinks that injecting you with something to end your life is the most loving and compassionate thing to do? Mercy killing, whatever. So the Catholic Church would say love must be guided by objective moral law. And then, but the Catholic Church follows the natural law. Do good and avoid evil. So we affirm objective moral truth, human dignity, reason, and universal norms. But the deficiency is that you have to have proper moral formation, and if you misapply the virtues, you can get yourself in trouble. So you need God's grace to live a virtuous life. So natural law is rooted in human reason, human nature, but it's perfected by divine law and assisted by grace. And so it's a huge advantage for Christians to have this divine assistance to live the way of Christ. So that's something to ponder. Now, in lesson 25, which is, we're on 18 today, we're going to go back to this topic again, and we're going to link it and see how it intertwines with conscience. We'll explore that in greater detail. And we're going to look into how it dovetails with the moral virtues. So this particular class hopefully has kind of enriched your thinking and understanding about how the Christian moral life is approached, how to view other systems of morality and recognize the good parts of them, but don't, embrace the not so good parts, and see a bigger, more holistic picture about how you should act in the world. And that's all the comments I have for today. It is 11:59 according to my watch. So unless there are questions, I think we're finished, and I would ask Deacon Allen if he would give us a final blessing. But any questions?
One thing, have you talked to him about the light that we're having next?
Yeah.
You've already talked to him about
Yeah. Do you want to add any comments one way or another?
The comment I have is when it'll be done. Next week's going to be a busy week.
Yes.
We have the homily. I'm giving the homily. Then we're having the bishop's appeal,
Oh.
which is a 3 5-minute video.
Yeah.
And then we'll have this right
Yeah.
for the people that are there, just so that you kind of know the sequence
Yeah.
of events.
And I'll send a note out and make sure you know. Now, the folks that he took in the other room earlier, they're not part of that rite. They were baptized in the Catholic Church, have received First Communion and reconciliation. They just haven't been confirmed. They're not part of the rite of welcome or rite of acceptance. So they're not going to be involved in that. So I'll make sure I send out to anybody who is involved. You will receive a note saying, you are involved, and I want to confirm that you have a sponsor, and if you don't, I will make sure you have a sponsor, and we'll go from there.
And it's a beautiful rite, it really is. It's great that it's done at Mass. The other people, the Catholics that are in there, the Christians that are in there, they go, man, I wish I could have gone through that. It's really a neat rite. So I hope you look forward to it.
Yep.
So we'll end it in prayer.
Son, Holy Spirit, amen.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us all together today to learn more about how we should live in our life, our moral responsibilities, how we treat ourselves, how we treat others, and how we go forward to love and serve you better in our life through your graces that you give us and through just all the different sacraments that we have in the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is started by you. It will be here forever. We thank you for bringing us all together today. Let's just close with an Our Father together. Our
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. So, Holy Spirit. One last comment I was going to make. I should have said this. I hope you guys can see that by having this broader understanding that you can go out confidently and make good moral decisions on your own, right? Remember I said, it's not about the church controlling you, it's about you controlling yourself. If you're equipped and aware and practice the virtues and so forth, you can go out there and be confident that you will make good moral decisions as a Christian. So it empowers you to make good decisions. So have at it. Go forth and do good things.